How's it going, Reject Nation? Greg and John here. Today I was like, you know what? We've been covering like a WandaVision video pretty much daily. Maybe today we shouldn't cover a WandaVision video. And then Film Theory goes ahead and drops how WandaVision will end and why it matters. Ooh. And then of course seeing a bunch of comments, I'm like, well, change of plans. Of course we gotta check it out. Love Film Theory. If you guys haven't subscribed to them, do it. Get them to 10 million subs. Let's get going, people. Oh yeah, and keep a lookout for our WandaVision reaction for the next episode, mañana.
Marvel's WandaVision is a big hit on Disney+, and the highest-rated MCU production ever, which honestly can only mean one of two things.
I didn't know that.
We've all been starved
I had no
for
idea.
Marvel content, or Disney's been spending way too much on fight scenes. Apparently what people really want to watch is the Avengers picking out baby furniture. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory.
That's cool.
Now in Technicolor. You know, if you're like me, you've been glued to the TV every Friday to check out the new episodes of Marvel Studios' WandaVision. Partly for the intrigue, partly for the memes, but mostly to watch the two most overpowered Avengers do something other than hanging back during battle so Hawkeye doesn't feel even more useless. Seriously, let Clint go home to his wife and tractor already. Arrow Man is out of his depth. But in all seriousness, WandaVision is like my perfect show. One that recreates the tropes of classic television and then twists them to create a meta-commentary on the medium, while also weaving together a compelling mystery where no one has any idea what's going on.
I think something's wrong here, Wanda.
If the number of requests I've gotten to cover this series is any indication, lots of people are feeling just as confused as Vision about what's really going on here. And since those heartless monsters at Disney are making us wait a whole week in between episodes, gave us some time to work a few things out. Maybe crack the case of not only WandaVision's big mystery, but also the shocking twist for the near future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'm very curious to see if you're right.
The villain of WandaVision and the next phase of the MCU
Is
as a
Wanda?
whole is Wanda Maximoff herself.
Heard this.
Wanda stands. Don't smash that dislike button all at once, but you can smash that subscribe button to help push this channel over 10 million subscribers. Let's look at the facts, shall we? If you read the online theories, the prevailing thought is that the big bad WandaVision is setting up is Mephisto, who is quite literally the Marvel equivalent of the devil. He does largely what the devil tends to do in stories. He makes deals with people and then tries to trick them into selling their soul. So why would the internet hive mind make this huge leap that classic sitcoms automatically lead to Santa himself?
No.
So why would the internet hive mind make this huge leap that classic sitcoms automatically lead to Satan himself? Well, lots of small things, really. First, there's Wanda's neighbor, who's always wearing a brooch and is dressed in a witch costume in the trailer. Her name is Agnes, very close to Agatha Harkness, a character from the comics who also always wears a brooch and is a witch and just so happens to be a servant of Mephisto. Add to that the fact that she says this—
The devil's in the details, Bev.
That's not the only place.
That line!
Which is more than a little suspicious. During that episode's fake commercial break, take a look at the back of the toaster. If you flip the image vertically, it says 666, commonly associated with the devil. And even out—
What?
Satan.
Have we never been told that?
Even thought of that. Damn.
Really? Okay. Oh, damn, you're right. Oh, that has not been pointed out. Maybe New Rockstars did at some point and we didn't catch it. We didn't watch the first two. Yeah. Darn it.
With the devil. And even outside of WandaVision, we see the devil starting to appear in other corners of the MCU. In the trailer for the Disney Plus series Loki, we see a church of some kind with a stained glass window that clearly depicts the Dark Lord of all things. Now that one is super weird, and considering how Marvel's release calendar is looking, the only places it really makes sense for the devil to be introduced is either in
Ironheart
Loki or, you guessed it, WandaVision. So there you have it. Mephisto is the main villain of WandaVision, and moving forward will be the big bad of Phase 5. But hey, that's just a theory. A film!
No.
The online theories, the prevailing thought is that the big bad WandaVision is setting up is Mephisto. Except for one thing. Marvel knows how much we pour over this stuff to find out what's gonna happen. They do all kinds of witchcraft to obscure the truth and make us buy into false realities.
Yes.
From Thor's missing eye in Ragnarok to Thanos' Infinity Stones. And in this case, I think the Mephisto Easter eggs are just that. Fun references to misdirect superfans.
Really?
Because adding Mephisto into the story at this point is too risky.
That's a
Not
bold
from
statement.
narrative standpoint or not wanting to get supernatural with it, nothing of the sort. I think it's too risky for one reason.
China, exactly.
China.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Of like, China does not like supernatural horror at all. Considering how big Marvel is in China, I was like, I wonder if they would actually do that only because of that. So I'm glad he's pointing that out.
It might suspect is a huge market for movies. It's the second largest in the world, in fact, by a large margin. But in order for your movie to release in China, it has to follow some pretty harsh censorship rules. For instance, did you know that Iron Man 3 had 4 extra minutes inserted into it in order to get released in China, including an extra scene where it suddenly turns into a Chinese medical drama? That is not nearly as jarring as the moments when the film promotes Tony Stark drinking Chinese milk products, which were put in there to ease the population's concern over milk tainted with mercury.
Really?
Anyway,
I had no idea about that.
Not to release any movies that are critical of the country's past or current political regime. And along with that is a ban on ghosts or things of a supernatural nature. For instance, this ban resulted in the censorship of the controversial film Babe, Pig in the City because the censor had a policy against talking animals.
La la la.
Granted, Marvel has certainly had its fair share of luck with the Chinese censor board in the past. Endgame got a pass despite Back to the Future being censored for its use of time travel. But Disney has recently run into issues with China after the release of Mulan, and Disney Plus is still struggling to release in the country. So storylines that heavily feature the Lord of the HE hockey sticks dimension would probably be a risk that they're not willing to take right now. Besides, the more interesting narrative here, and the one that all the clues are pointing to, is that the real villain of WandaVision and the thing that'll kick off the entirety of Phase 5 is Wanda herself as she rips holes into the multiverse either out of anger or grief. Don't believe me? It's easy to forget at this point, but she started as a villain in Avengers Age of Ultron, where she and her twin brother Pietro were super-powered henchmen for Hydra. And since then, she has been through a lot. As a child, she was present when her parents were killed by a Stark Industry mortar shell. If that wasn't bad enough, she was then trapped for days next to a second undetonated Stark bomb.
We were trapped 2 days.
Every effort to save us, every shift in the bricks, I think.
The accent. Kind of forgot about it.
Remember that?
Tony Stark to kill us.
By the end of the movie, she loses her brother and her entire country of Sokovia. And it doesn't get any better for her when she becomes a good guy. She's blamed for the accident that leads to the passing of the Sokovia Accords and causes Avengers Civil War, which then forces her to live as an outlaw. She had to see her beloved Vision die twice, once by her very own hand in Infinity War. And then she gets dusted, only to come back and have everyone she was friends with in the team, like Black Widow and Captain America, either gone or dead.
When you see it, you see it from an aerial, you see the clip compilation, you're like, damn, that's a lot of trauma.
She has had a tough deal in this universe.
Like, I was aware, but man, when you really point it out in more detail, you're like, wow, it just keeps getting worse. I guess my only thing of why it was maybe she won't be the actual villain is because they kind of teased that with episode 4, the way how that ends. Like, that's a little too early on to tease it, but hey, I mean, it's still a very plausible, it's a conclusion I have not scratched out yet.
Final scene of Endgame, she's aligned with Falcon? It makes no sense. She is alone at this point in the series. I mean, all of that is enough to knock the fake Russian accent out of anybody.
We would destroy the Avengers.
Well, there are people who are expecting me too, we both made promises.
See, I forgot to tell you my wife is from Europe.
What is it the Joker always says?
All it takes is one bad day.
Well, Wanda has had bad decades. So Wanda is definitely in a fragile state when we last see her in Endgame. But Wanda's inner struggle between good and evil isn't just evident in the MCU, it's inspired directly from her origins in the Marvel comics. There, she and her brother Quicksilver were founding members of the OG X-Men villains, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And they're the bad guys because they put it in their name. The Brotherhood was a family business. Their leader, Magneto, that Magneto was Wanda and Pietro's dad.
It's not
the
Professor X.
Maybe it is Magneto. Until they joined the Avengers in Avengers number 16. And while they've mostly been heroes ever since, there has been some back and forth in comics like Avengers 53 and X-Men 45. Now, obviously, the MCU doesn't follow the comics to the letter, so why does any of this matter? Well, because they very often go back to the comics for inspiration. And while WandaVision is indeed an original story, it seems to be taking its cues from 3 specific Marvel storylines: the Vision and the Scarlet Witch limited series, Avengers Disassembled, but you can figure out how that one goes, and House of M,
yeah.
all of which tell very different but connected stories with one big thing in common. They all had dark plot twists involving reality not being what it seems, and Wanda being the cause of it. At first glance, Vision and the Scarlet Witch seems to be the most similar to WandaVision, in that it's a fun sort of Marvel story mostly about the characters trying to live normal lives in the suburbs, including Wanda using her Scarlet Witch powers to conceive her twin sons, Tommy and Billy. Sound familiar?
Tommy?
Yeah, it's happened in the episode.
Baby coming.
Even though this quirky 80s miniseries is a mostly happy story, it gets an unexpectedly dark conclusion in the pages of West Coast Avengers a few years later, when it's revealed that Billy and Tommy didn't actually exist. No, really. In a twist worthy of a mid-tier M. Night Shyamalan movie, it turns out Billy and Tommy are illusions that Wanda willed into existence from her own subconscious without ever realizing it. I know, right? How would that work? You know how in the movies they never really explain what Wanda's powers are and they don't really make a whole lot of sense?
It's kind of like the comics.
They do explain them, but they still don't
Initially.
make sense.
Yeah.
The simple version is that she can alter probability and the nature of reality itself. So basically, she's not so much throwing cars at your face as she is creating a new reality wherein cars are now on top of your face. Anyway, the whole make-believe baby thing was arranged by Mephisto and a guy named Master Pandemonium, whose name sounds a lot like the opening band for a Megadeth concert, and who, it's worth noting, literally had babies for hands. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so you can imagine finding out your entire reality and your children was a lie created in your own subconscious. It's gonna be kind of traumatic. So every memory that was related to Tommy and Billy gets erased from Wanda's memory, never to be mentioned again. But then, 20 years later, in the massive end of an era reboot event, Avengers Disassembled, Marvel decides, hey, remember that time you thought you had twins but you didn't because Satan would be as good of a reason as any for the Scarlet Witch to lose her mind so hard she nearly destroys the Avengers. In Disassembled, the Avengers are systematically destroyed
I gotta
by
say,
a
the
series
editing
of
is so
disasters,
good.
betrayals,
Of
personal
this video,
failings,
yeah.
and reappearances by some of their worst enemies, nearly all of which turn out to be illusions or psychic manipulations caused by the Scarlet Witch's reality-changing powers. The whole thing forces them to get a new clubhouse, let Wolverine join the crew, and ultimately reboot the issue numbering. So it was mostly an excuse to shake up the lineup and redecorate, but it was a huge deal in terms of redefining Wanda as one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Comics universe. After that came House of M, which gave her powers yet another frightening dimension. Literally, when it's revealed that Wanda can do more than just change her own reality, she can create an entirely new one. In House of M, she traps the entire Marvel universe in an alternate version of itself where her brother is alive again, and everyone who is still mad at her from the last thing, so, you know, like a lot of people, would hopefully forget reality because they suddenly had new lives based on their greatest wishes coming true. Spoiler alert, doesn't work.
Not a great plan.
Leading to her iconic line, "No more mutants," where she erases all mutant powers from existence, more or less. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but that's the broad strokes. So already I bet you could start seeing a lot of parallels here. A storyline about Wanda and Vision living a perfect suburban life and having 2 kids under mysterious circumstances. Getting some big Vision and Scarlet Witch vibes there. Her rewinding the show to rewrite how events proceed when she doesn't like the direction things are going.
No.
It shows that she has control over this world. Her getting mad and yeeting people out of sitcom land when things just become a bit too real. It tells us that she has created, intentionally or otherwise, an alternate reality inside of this bubble. A perfect world where she can exist alongside her dead robot lover and her make-believe children. Is that why the other characters are so afraid of her? Are they prisoners trapped inside of WandaVision's alternate reality the same way that the entire Marvel universe was trapped in the House of M reality? Hey, future Matt Pat jumping in here. Who knew episode 4 would reveal quite so much? Kinda sucks when your episodes take 2 weeks to produce. Means that you're working with 3 weeks worth of information and episode 4 is also there. So you just kinda gotta cross your fingers and hope it doesn't blow too many things up. Anyway, this last point actually seems to be confirmed in this latest episode. We see them go through person by person, showing that the cast of the show are townsfolk that are trapped in this reality. All except for one notable exception who goes unnamed. There was no mention of Agnes. Harkness. Suspicious? I think so. A key part of the three
Yes,
storylines we
yes,
just
yes.
talked about from the comics is that Wanda doesn't necessarily turn evil in them. It's just that when she loses control of her subconscious, it sometimes goes to bad places and does bad things.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible that while she is the one controlling things in WandaVision, she's not actually controlling them herself. She's not aware that she's the one controlling them. She might be unconscious or sedated or even in a coma. I mean, think about this. In psychoanalytic dream theory of the type popularized by Sigmund Freud, the subconscious mind rearranges seemingly unrelated images and ideas into symbolically recognizable new forms, which we then recall as dreams in our subconscious. Like, say, a traumatic memory about a ticking Stark time bomb becoming a creepy ticking Stark toaster commercial.
Dude!
That is a solid connection.
Because yeah, I mean, a lot of us have picked up on the whole thing with the commercials being some of the most obvious hints at her trauma. Damn, the toaster thing never made sense to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe that for sure.
And to make that potentially both a mislead and also a huge clue, I think is just expert. You know?
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Top and bottom heating elements can handle anything.
It's a Star toaster, yeah.
The red light too.
Toastmate 2000 by Stark Industries.
Hear that suspicious ticking of the toaster? Listen again.
Like a bomb or a detonating.
Top and bottom heating elements can handle
Oh, never mind.
anything.
No.
And
Is
that
it?
ominous flashing light, that,
There's
my
like a
friends,
beep
is no
that came in.
toaster. That is the ticking time bomb of childhood trauma.
We wait for 2 days for Tony Stark to kill us.
Then there's the commercial in episode 3 about soap, which is a reference to Agent Coulson's theories about Hydra using soap as a mind control device.
Nah, I saw that one
A long time
now.
ago if it wasn't for the mind control soap.
Just went up on Patreon this morning.
Hydra loads it up with chemicals. It seeps into our bloodstream and plants false memories into our brains. They want us to believe this is a magical place. I make my own soap now.
Even the black and white palette could be Wanda's subconscious calling back to Vision's death in Infinity War.
Dude, great call.
I would not have put this together.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Considering how intentional every choice seems to be in almost every frame of this show, everything we've heard, it's like the most reaching one, but I could also see that being a very intentional call.
Especially on top of all these other details.
His whole body turned monochrome, which might just cause her subconscious to associate the black and white aesthetic of old TV with the last memory of that person being dreamed back to life. Now that is meta. Hey, Future MatPat again. This is another one of those things that's nearly confirmed in episode 4. After Wanda is reminded of the reality outside of her sitcom bubble, she temporarily
Vision.
sees
Yeah.
Vision in his real
That
dead
image
form.
still.
Again, he's in monochrome. Am I the only one thinking that she may just be puppeteering the dead body of her boyfriend? Because
you're
if
not.
so, that would be awesome. In short, the undeniable truth here is that Vision is dead, and there's a high likelihood that the children aren't real, or if they are, they're going to be taken from her.
For the children.
When
Agnes
the
could
laugh
take
track
them.
dies and the retro clothes go away at the end of the series, which you know they're going to, she's gonna be left alone. Which means this series is gonna end with one very unhappy, very powerful witch running loose in the MCU who now's unlocked the ability to make reality bend the knee. Is there a doctor in the house? Perhaps a master of the mystic arts? After all, in case you forgot, Elizabeth Olsen is scheduled to play Scarlet Witch again in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in early 2022, but they never said she was one of the good guys. Olsen is also starting to
heard this
talk up
theory.
rumors that she might just pop up in the third Spider-Man movie. You know, the one that's also supposed to be dealing with alternate universes
does
coming
have
together.
Doctor
the one
Strange.
that's also set to
Absolutely.
feature a previously confirmed guest appearance by Doctor Strange. And the one that's set to hit theaters only 3 months before Multiverse of Madness. Multiverse of Madness. Man, that is such a stupid name. It's like really cheesy, like awkwardly cheesy. Wait a minute. Multiverse of Madness. M-O. If you ask me, it looks like Marvel's newest mom is likely to end WandaVision ripping open reality in an attempt to...
Wait a minute. I mean, it's cool.
It's fun.
It's cool. It gets you excited initially, but that might not. It's a little. I'll roll with it for now. We'll see how the movie goes.
ripping open reality in an attempt to reclaim her happiness, and maybe even her kids, with the rest of Phase 5 needing to sort it all out. And by the end, Disney gets to keep who they like, they get to lose who they don't, and they get get an excuse to introduce the X-Men without breaking the established continuity of all the movies that came before. No more mutants? More like bring on the mutants. All it takes is for Mom to go a little bit mad. But wait, future MatPat here to chime in one final time. All of this would actually be a pretty bad look for Disney. Their first female hero, Black Widow, is like the first major character to get killed off in these movies, and then their second one turns evil because babies. It's not a good look for them. And rewatching these episodes with number 4 now in consideration, I think we're actually gonna have ourselves a scapegoat. I do think everything that I said in today's theory is still gonna wind up being true, but I think that there's one final layer to all of this, that someone is actually going to be revealed to be using Wanda throughout this whole thing, kind of like Mephisto in the comics. And the hexagons are the things to prove it. If you were paying attention to the first 3 episodes, you saw hexagons everywhere throughout the series.
Never thought so much about
really
geometry this way.
Outright making question number 1, why hexagons? And while sure, the Mind Stone was technically a hexagon, the real Easter egg that solves this is right here. Episode 4,
His
5
office?
minutes and 40 seconds. The new director of S.W.O.R.D has his diplomas on the wall in a strange hexagon pattern that matches Wanda's reality bubble. Every other hexagon has been created within Wanda's reality, but this one is in the actual world with no other reason of being put there except to act as a clue to us, the viewer. I mean, why spend so much time at S.W.O.R.D headquarters? Why introduce this new character? My guess is that Wanda has been to this office and that the hexagons might be her subconscious reacting to a memory of being in that director's room. Another hint comes from the difference between the comic S.W.O.R.D organization that we see hinted throughout various symbols in the series and the MCU S.W.O.R.D. You see, both titles are backronyms, but while the comic S.W.O.R.D is named Sentient World Observation and Response Department, the S.W.O.R.D in the MCU is ominously named Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Division. This title indicates that rather than dealing with intergalactic threats, the MCU S.W.O.R.D is interested in sentient weapons and how to deal with them. Human weapons that have gone out of control, weapons like Wanda. We even have this out-of-place line shoved in there.
It also says observation and response on that door, not creation.
This line is meant to clue us in that these people have made weapons in the past, and it looks like the director might be in the process of doing it again. Because consider this, if Wanda's kids are in fact real, if this whole simulation is somehow orchestrated by S.W.O.R.D for the children and they're taken from her, we have ourselves truly the first characters actually born with superpowers in this universe. They would be the first ever mutants. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And hey there, all you have.
Wait a minute. I'm a little bit confused on the theory part here with the end with Director Hayward. So they're trying to contain Wanda, like they consider her a threat. The thing about the Tommy and Billy being the first mutants, are they trying to, are they aware that they can be like firstborn mutants ever? Because they'd be
aware of the possibility that she could bring these into existence or something.
Yeah, because if they are in fact real, they're not just some imaginative thing, they would be the first mutants ever. You know, because they were born with powers as opposed to being given powers later on or had something done to them where they got powers. That is cool. I mean, I never even thought about that if they are real, they would technically be the first mutants.
Yeah. And then it just makes you wonder how much awareness, you know, they truly have at S.W.O.R.D about what's going on with Wanda and what her capability for bringing that kind of, you know, life to bear.
And who would know how to deal with mutants? Professor X.
Professor X, the most qualified guy for the job.
Hey there, all you hepcats. Yes, you watching this video. Have you considered smacking that subscribe button?
Should.
It's the swellest thing that'll keep you smartest on the block. Or if you want another theory about Phase 5 of the MCU, watch out how Thor might be the one to turn evil in the cosmic universe.
That was
Until
a great
next
video.
time, theorists.
We did react to that. Subscribe to them, guys. Click the notification bell. Hit their like button. Check them out. You can do the same thing for us. Man, that was great. That was amazing.
Yeah,
that was amazing. It's like a lot of what we've heard. I wonder if them and New Rockstars are friends. Because
they collaborate. They share notes.
There is a good amount where I'm like, well, we've heard a lot of this before. I mean, like some of it from just our own conclusion. A lot of it from like watching a lot of New Rockstars. There were times where I'm like, okay, yeah, I've heard this from New Rockstars. But then they go to further elaborate more. And then I'm like, oh, damn, that's even even more of an additional thought on top of what we've heard before that just goes to further drive that point home. I do think they make a really solid point when it comes to like China. That was my main concern of like, would they do that just because of China? That was a thought of mine. All things being said, I don't think Wanda would go full baddie. I just feel like she would land them in a position where she's done some bad things that they need to correct, but I don't think she'd become like full-on villain.
She doesn't seem to have malicious intent.
All right, guys. Well, Film Theory, what'd you guys think of their video? Leave your thoughts down below. Last but not least,
Gene the Jeter, just wanted to shout you out real quick and say what's up. Recently sent me a couple voice messages, and I'm so glad that Instagram has finally updated itself so I can hear your smooth velvety pipes. Gene is got a little bit of sequel franchise opportunities opening up himself as he is getting ready to follow up his book, The Craigslist Model, which I am now 20 pages into. And when you see how this book is written,
I read it in one day.
You're gonna realize how unimpressive a feat that is.
In about an hour and a half.
Guys, you're gonna want to pick
this book up. That was like a week ago when I did that.
Yeah, you did, yeah. You really should.
Maybe 2 weeks ago, actually.
I'm doing it incrementally, and you can too. It reads like a play or like poetry. Sub-2 Ego is the name of the sequel, so you're gonna want to catch up with Roxanne and Slade. And Gene, just an all-around good guy. I'm glad that you're at least doing your best to stay safe. I know a lot of people around you have had it which shall not be named, and you've been doing your best to stay locked down, so keep safe, and we'll talk soon. Much love, buddy.
Thank you, buddy.